Success in Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry, Lutz, and it's a day for new guests on the show. And we've got Fabian Calvo, a kindred soul, out there doing his podcast. We're similar in a lot of ways. We've both kind of gotten the calling of informing you, letting you know what's going on, letting you know what you can do about it. And Fabian, welcome to the show here.
Hey, Kerry, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. Been following your work for some time now, and I appreciate it. So it's good to be able to sit down and have a chat.
Hey, and likewise. And, you know, when you were telling me about how you ran for office and all of the things they started saying about you and, you know, besmirching your reputation, it really was like a flashback to my brief aborted political career.
Yeah, it's really was a wake-up call for me. Here I am running for office. I'm investing my time. I spent a year going door to door, and at one point was actually leading in polls. And then within about a month period of time, papers start coming out with stories about me, the direct mail to homeowners. I mean, literally just making stuff up. And what I found was so crazy is I went on to actually sue the local newspaper for some of the stories that they were writing. And it's amazing how the system, the political parties, the local media, they're all one when it comes to getting their people into office. And it showed me on the much larger scale how corrupted the entire political system really is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the good thing was I learned that I really never wanted to run for office when I went through the process, that I hated every minute of it. But the good thing was they were so busy coming after me because I was like their greatest nightmare that that all the people I was running with managed to get elected.
Right.
So they got so obsessed with stopping me. So, and then when I got defeated, I was so happy and relieved because I realized it was the last thing I ever wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I wasn't known for, holding my tongue or biting my tongue on any topic. And, truth is that there's just, you could probably count them on one or two hands, a politician that's willing to be upfront and honest and truthful with the American people. It just really doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Well, I just happen to have one that I interviewed last week. He's actually running on a platform of bringing back the gold standard, if you can believe it. A guy named Jeff Bell in New Jersey.
Wow.
Yeah, can you imagine? So you know what his chances are of winning.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. He'll be labeled a far right winger for talking about the gold standard, and most people are so dumbed down they'll be like, well, yeah, I guess that's what he is. Yeah,
like gold, but what are we gonna if we use it for money? How are we gonna make jewelry? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just is mystifying. But eventually, you will learn that there's plenty of gold for money and jewelry, and not to worry about it, right?
Yeah, and what's true is also that I had a friend of mine tell me this. I think actually it was Greg Hunter from USA Watchdog who told me that, one day, Kerry, everyone will know what you and I know today. And that is so incredibly true. When it comes to the economy, when it comes to the fraud, the wars, all the bull crap, it will be revealed when the emperor will be exposed as having no clothes. And that's going to be a great day, but it also is going to be a pretty crazy day as well.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the world will be a better place, because all the progress that's been made in the past 100 years, you think about it, a lot of progress has been made, but then what have we done with it? It's all been put to the questionable purpose of keeping this machine, the welfare warfare state, in power,
Yeah, it's very true. And I mean, they've gotten really good at it. They've had a head start of decades on it before most people really woke up. I mean, I think it's really in the 60s is when people finally started to realize our government lies. There's corruption in our government. Don't trust your government. Don't always trust authority. And really, since then, it's almost like they doubled down. And we were talking about this before we started the interview. Was that they really doubled down on the dumbing down of the American people, and not just in America, but you see this throughout Western Europe and the West as well, where people are more concerned about themselves and more concerned about just frivolous things than they are about real issues that are going to affect their lives and their children's lives for decades to come.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And, and then they get them into false memes, false causes like global warming. Right. And, hey, I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate mail about this, but it's been pretty well demonstrated that global warming, it's just not real. And all the other stuff goes on, and they're busy demonstrating about stuff that isn't real. It's just amazing.
That's a funny point you bring up global warming, because I was telling the guys in my office this morning that I was at the gym working out today, and I had an absolutely grueling workout. And if it wasn't for such a grueling workout, I actually ran into Bobby Kennedy. And I was so exhausted that if I wasn't as exhausted, I would have had an impromptu debate. They probably would have kicked me out of the gym. Because, you look at someone like JFK, who in today's America would pretty much almost be like a libertarian.
Yeah.
And how far it's gone into just fraud and lies and deception, just pushing something like Al Gore basically wanting everybody to pay him carbon taxes while he's, has mansions all around the world. I mean, it's just so, like we were talking before, Kerry, it's like the fraud is so out in the open now that I can't believe people still haven't really just come to that realization. But it begs the question, with the fraud so out in the open, so brazen with financial stuff and everything else, what's next on the pipeline? Like, what are they willing to do? Because at this point, I think they could get away with anything.
Yeah, I think, and you know what? I think they can. I really do. Until the collapse really, really happens and stuff just stops getting done. Basic services just stop being performed, like garbage, police, water, electric. I think they can get away with anything,
Yeah. Well, as long as they have what G. Edward Griffin is, deemed the Mandrake mechanism, where they can print money at will, they can get away with anything. I mean, think about it in the court of law. We basically have a justice system, not always, but for the most part, you look at O.J. Simpson, whoever has the most money ends up winning. Whoever can hire the most ruthless legal team usually ends up winning. And, these banksters that basically the banking cartels that run the West have an endless supply of money to do whatever they want to hire the best talent, to do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. Buy off the media, own the media, and so, it's like, when you have an endless supply of financial resources, of course, you can get away with anything.
Yep, this is true. And, you talk about Bobby Kennedy Jr. I know him only too well. He used to work out at the gym where I worked out in New York. And of course, there were no cell phone signs all over the place, all over this gym. And he walked around all over the gym talking on his cell phone, looking at the machines. That was as close as he got to working out. And I could tell you a whole bunch of other stories, but they've been well documented in the New York Post. So no need to go into them. But he was a crazy character.
Yeah, it speaks to basically do as we say, not as we do.
Yes. And
that is the culture in this criminal system that has basically hijacked the U.S. Republic. It's basically, we're going to tell you what to do, and then we're going to go. It's like, the Soviet Union had 2 lanes of traffic, one for everybody else and one for the political elites. That's where we're going.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way they want it. And it's the craziest thing when you see guys like him around. Like half the people in the gym held him in complete and utter disdain, and the other half worshiped the ground that he walked on. It's amazing.
Yeah. I hear you.
So, but I just kind of bit my tongue and just said, maybe one day we'll have our little debate, but not today. So, not today, but that's like I used to see him after Fisker, the car company that he worked so diligently on and got, hundreds of millions of dollars in green money from the government, failed.
Went bankrupt and was bought by the Chinese.
Right. And, he just didn't seem to be affected at all.
Well, that's the new, they've been so genius and flipping. I mean, you got to give them credit. People that they're evil geniuses. And one of the biggest money makers for them, as we've seen with Solyndra and with a lot of other operations, Fisker, is they use the media to blow up these companies and just spread immense hype. And then they line their pockets with tens of millions, and then they basically just pull the plug and implode the whole entire thing. That's the new, we would think is like, hey, you save some money, you invest that money, you start an industry, you use that capital that you make to reinvest. But no, they use debt and the media, which they own and operate, and phony hype to basically line their pockets, and then they basically file bankruptcy. I mean, it's insanity. And they're doing it, Kerry. They're doing it with the finances of the U.S. government now. So they've taken it to one of the things I often talk about is real estate, which is kind of my I have a real estate company and I just love real estate. And is that now they're doing the equivalent of a penny stock pump and dump with the entire U.S. housing market. I mean, that's how brazen these people have gotten. So it's again, of course they'll do that with derivatives, and Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan leverage 70-1, and the massive QE that they keep rolling out. I mean, they'll do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's anything becomes fair game for the template, right? For the template. Right. And hey, if you're caught in the crossfire and you get hurt by it, too bad. Right? Yeah. It's just your collateral damage.
Well, it's like, I remember I used to have an uncle growing up that kind of would brag about how he had a couple $100,000 in savings. And the guy had worked his whole life and saved money. And, back in the 80s, that was like having a couple $100,000 was a lot of money. But he would brag about was that he got about 10% interest on his money. And he pretty much lived off of that.
Yeah, no more.
Not anymore. And, not only not anymore, but there's this guy from Seeking Alpha that had a great article about how the Fed stole $9 trillion from the middle class. And since they've had interest rates at 0%, that has been the equivalent of $9 trillion in interest payments that the middle class would have gotten. Instead, what do they have to do to make a little bit of money? They have to speculate and go gamble on Wall Street. That's what the financial planners, this whole financial services industry is pushing people to do. We saw how well that worked out in 2008. And when they pull the plug on this next big stock market manipulation, these people are going to literally be left with nothing.
Yeah, I think that's the game plan, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's about. Yep. Let's face the facts. That's what they're setting us up for.
Right. So. I mean, I think the current stock market. I mean, clearly it's benefited from QE. They're going to be, as we were talking beforehand, they're going to get ready for another round of QE. They may not call it they may not necessarily call it QE, but they will ramp up the bond purchases and the mortgage-backed security purchases, which, by the way, are just worthless pieces of paper that literally are worthless. I see the Dow going over 20,000, but it's like everything. It's like the orange juice market. It's all completely manipulated by crony capitalists. Not to say people can't make money or invest in those markets, but you got to just recognize first and foremost, you're dealing with the market where the stock charts and all this other stuff are meaningless. It's a market manipulated 100% like gold and silver, like everything else.
Yeah. And that is every market in the world now is manipulated, right? Can you think of one that isn't? Maybe the local, used car lot that is trading cars. Maybe they're not manipulated, but I mean, outside of that, I really can't. Yeah, eBay, right? I don't think they're manipulating eBay. Too much trouble, but I guess it could theoretically be.
Yeah. Well, again, if you had the Fed basically placing the buy it now for every single item that came up, they could easily do that.
Yeah. Well, certain categories might be manipulated on eBay.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Kerry, that's the actual logic behind it. So if it's kind of like if Janet Yellen came out and said, listen, we're going to put $1 trillion or, $500 million towards placing the buy it now bid on everything that comes up on eBay. Well, what would happen? Prices on eBay would keep rising and going up because you have this artificial entity coming in and buying up stuff without any real free market bidding. That's what they've done with everything.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And it's just further evidence why you really can't trust them to do anything. And why manipulation of interest rates is really such a bad idea.
I mean, historically speaking, it ends very badly. And historically speaking, it's never been done to the level that we've seen the Fed do, and also the Bank of England and the ECB. But, that's what I love about shows like yours, Kerry, is that, and it's particularly the name, it's like people need some financial sense. And for too long, people were sold on find some kind of, financial planner that can basically handle all that stuff for you. Like my brother has a financial planner, and I ask him, well, what does he know that you can't figure out? And I never get a good answer. But it's amazing. I think, one of the things we talk about investments to make, or, just what people should do to prepare. And first and foremost, it's start investing in yourself and your education about financial markets. You don't need to be an Ivy League, or an economist, but I think you could know the basics.
Yeah, sure. And the more you study, the more you learn, regardless what level you're starting from. You just read books and, you keep reading. And like I say, even if you start out knowing nothing, if you just keep reading and reading and reading, eventually you fill in your knowledge base, It's so important.
No question. Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson. It'll take you about 3 hours to read it. It basically has everything in there you need to know about what a real, true free market economy should look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was great. Yeah, he was really great and really contributed so much to everything. He was really the great economics communicator. Get down to it, it's a shame, though, that politics, well, we all know what's wrong with the system. Unfortunately, there just seems to be no way to fix it, does there?
I think the fix at this point would be potentially as painful as a full-blown economic meltdown. And so you wonder, is the economic collapse the actual fix in itself? Now, why I think it may not be the fix in itself is because the economic collapse will usher in tremendous amounts of chaos and poses the reality for someone to come to the table and say, look, I will make things better, give me the power and I will, basically take care of you. That's a reality with an economic collapse that people, a lot of people out there that are almost cheerleading the collapse. I think they need to know, historically speaking, it's typically when a strong man takes the reins of the government. Now, what could potentially happen, or I think not potentially happen, what I would love to see happen is somebody that can actually communicate the problems we're facing right now and level with the American people, tell them the truth that this system is unsustainable. And I think you can do a lot of different measures to try to begin to return this back to a true free market economy. But those fixes will be tremendous pain for years. And I don't know if the American people, I don't think, unfortunately, have the, kind of intestinal fortitude to say, okay, well, I get it. I'm going to have to go through some serious pain so my kids can grow up in a country where there's going to be some semblance of real liberty, of real economic freedom.
Yeah. What you're describing, it's really, really hard to get people to go along with that,
Yeah, well, yeah.
It really is. I know what you're saying, but you see it hard to get people to really go for that.
But Kerry, in a full-blown economic meltdown, I mean, what are the chances, do you think, of a strong man coming to the table and the people, like we were saying earlier, begging government to do something? And that might mean, hey, listen, we gotta curtail free speech because there's a lot of people spreading false fear that's freaking people out. We have to institute capital controls, which they somewhat already have. We have to raise taxes and distribute more of the wealth. I mean, just real crazy things that I think most people out there would be like, yeah, let's do it.
I think they're already trying to do it, so if things get really bad, I think what you're describing is entirely likely. So we're kind of damned if we do and damned if we don't,
Right. That's a good way of putting it. That's why, one of the things I routinely tell people on my YouTube channel and on my podcast is you have to opt out of this current financial model, opt out of big government, get rid of all dependence on any form of big government. If you're collecting a Social Security check and you need that, I'm not saying don't take the money for in the short term, because the truth be told, you worked for that and they were supposed to actually save that money. Instead, they spent the trillions of dollars. But the point is that you have to start looking for an alternative means to become self-reliant and financially independent. That doesn't mean you're going to be rolling around, in the Rolls-Royce Phantom or, trying to live large. That just means that when it goes down, you have the financial resources to be independent, to leave the country if you have to set up and live for a period of time here without, without being dependent or without, having to maybe even go into work or whatever it may be. And that needs to start like yesterday.
Yeah, that is a great point. And like we were talking about before, the internet opens up options that you never had before, you never dreamed of, and it's all out there and available to you. You just have to get the education. And like you said, investing in yourself is always the best investment.
Yeah, of course, depending on how draconian this government gets, they could try to stop that as well. I don't know what ultimately they're going to do, but I do know that when it comes to, for example, technology and the internet, I believe it's the potential golden age of business, where if you think about it, Kerry, 15 years ago, if you wanted to open up a retail store, you'd have to go out and get a loan, get a brick and mortars business, storefront, invest a lot of capital. Today, you can do it for a few $1,000 on eBay or Amazon. That opportunity's never existed before. And, people should be taking advantage of that. So I think there's a lot of good things on the horizon. Unfortunately for all of us, literally the equivalent of I shouldn't even say the mafia, because the mafia at least had some kind of honor, but the most ruthless criminals you could think of have taken over the U.S. government. And that's a big problem, obviously, because they're the ones who are creating policy that's affecting all of our lives.
Hey, that's a great point, and we'll have to end it on that. Just tell us, Fabian, where we find you, how we get your podcast, subscribe to it.
Sure. So they can go to Fabian4liberty.com. That's Fabian, the number 4, liberty.com, under the podcast tab, or on the homepage of the subscribe link there as well. And all my videos from my YouTube channel are posted there as well.
Excellent. And it's really been a pleasure, Fabian, and refreshing. And hey, the more of us that speak up, the stronger we get. And you'll find the link to Fabian's work, as always, in the show notes to this interview. financialsurvivalnetwork.com. That's the website. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and take a look at the site. Stefan, our webmaster, he just does an incredible job finding articles that you want to read from every source imaginable. We'll make sure to link to your site as well, Fabian, because you do incredible work. And thanks so much for being on. You'll definitely be a regular.
Yeah, Kerry, I appreciate it. Want to have you on my show as well. And thanks for the opportunity.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.